The distress signal traveled across 17 star systems before anyone truly understood what it meant. Ambassador Ketharal of the Vorani Collective stood at the central communication hub of the Galactic Council Station, watching the holographic display flicker with increasingly desperate messages. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern among his species. "They are destroying everything," the message repeated. "The harvesters have returned. All species, all worlds, anyone who can hear this, we are dying. Please, someone, anyone, help us." The voice belonged to a Mithrani female, her usually melodic tones cracked with terror. Behind her, the sounds of explosions and screaming filled the audio channel. Then static, then nothing. Kethrol turned to face the assembled representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations. Some had traveled for weeks to attend this emergency session. Others joined through long-range communication links, their holographic forms shimmering with distance lag. "The Harvesters," whispered Representative Yulmak of the Crystalline Accord. His body, composed of living mineral formations, vibrated with frequencies that translated to pure fear. "They were supposed to be gone. They were supposed to have moved beyond our galaxy 10,000 years ago." "Apparently, they have returned," said Fleet Commander Zrix of the Telonian Empire, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been concern or anger. "The question is not why they have come back. The question is what we intend to do about it." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the history. The Harvesters were not a species in any traditional sense. They were a machine intelligence, ancient beyond comprehension, that traveled from galaxy to galaxy, consuming all biological life and resources before moving on. When they had last visited this region of space, they had exterminated over 200 civilizations before simply leaving, their hunger apparently satisfied. Now, they had returned. And the galaxy's combined military forces, despite thousands of years of advancement, were simply not prepared. "We could run," said the representative from the Fenthian swarm, his insectoid body clicking with nervous energy. "Evacuate the core worlds. Scatter to the outer rim. Perhaps they will leave again when they find nothing of value." "They will find us," Zrix replied coldly. "They always find everyone. Running only delays death." "Then what do you suggest?" Kethrol asked. "The Telonian fleet is the largest in the galaxy. Surely you have some plan." Zrix's eyes shifted away, and in that moment, everyone understood. The mighty Telonian Empire, with its 1,000-year military tradition, had nothing. No plan, no strategy, no hope. "Perhaps," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, "we should contact the humans." Every head turned. The speaker was a small Emiri female named Thessaly, barely a junior diplomatic aide, her blue skin flushing darker with embarrassment at suddenly becoming the center of attention. "The humans?" Yulmak's crystal form pulsed with confusion. "They are barely spacefaring. They have been part of the galactic community for less than 100 of their years. What could they possibly contribute?" Thessaly swallowed hard, but continued speaking. "I have studied their history. Before they joined the Council, they fought many wars among themselves. Terrible wars. They have experience with conflict that most of our species do not." "Experience with conflict?" Zrix laughed, a harsh barking sound. "My species has been conquering worlds for millennia. The humans play with primitive projectile weapons and think themselves warriors." "With respect, Fleet Commander," Thessaly said, her voice growing stronger, "you have been conquering worlds that surrender easily. Your wars last weeks at most. Human wars lasted years, decades, sometimes generations. They fought not for territory or resources, but for ideas. They developed weapons specifically designed to kill each other in the most efficient ways possible, and they never stopped improving those weapons." "She speaks truth," another voice interjected. This time it was a Valthan historian named Crix, his wrinkled face thoughtful. I have also studied human history. They are perhaps the most violent species to ever achieve interstellar travel. They should have destroyed themselves 100 times over. Instead, they channeled that violence outward. Their ships may be small, but their weapons... He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Their weapons are designed with a brutality that most species cannot comprehend. While we developed plasma arrays and graviton beams, they developed something they call kinetic weaponry. Simple in principle. They accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. No shields can stop them. No armor can withstand them. When asked why they chose such a primitive approach, their response was disturbing. What did they say? Kethral asked. They said that plasma weapons were inefficient, that energy weapons waste too much power. They said that a chunk of metal moving fast enough will destroy anything, and metal is everywhere. They did not develop these weapons for hunting or sport. They developed them specifically for killing other humans. And now they have adapted them for space combat. The chamber was silent again, but this time the silence felt different. There was something in the air that had not been there before. Something that might have been hope, if hope could taste like fear. We cannot ask the humans for help, Zrick said finally. They have no fleet to speak of. Perhaps 100 ships at most. We have thousands. And yet, Kethral said slowly, none of our thousands of ships have ever faced the harvesters and survived. Perhaps it is time to try something different. The debate continued for hours, but eventually a decision was made. A message would be sent to Earth, humanity's homeworld. Not a demand, not an order, a request, a plea. The mighty Galactic Council, representatives of the most advanced civilizations in known space, would humble themselves before the youngest species in the community and ask for their help. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of the United Earth ship Resolute, watching the stars wheel slowly past as the massive vessel maintained its position at the edge of human territory. At 62 years old, she had spent more than 4 decades in service to humanity's space forces, rising through the ranks through a combination of tactical brilliance and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Her hair had gone gray years ago, and her face bore the lines of someone who had seen too much death. But her eyes remained sharp, and her mind remained sharper. When the message from the Galactic Council arrived, she was the first person the United Earth Command contacted. "They want our help," said Admiral Torres, his holographic form flickering slightly with the distance between Earth and the Resolute's current position. "The harvesters have returned. Dozens of worlds are already gone." "I'm aware," Chen Wei replied. "I've been monitoring the situation since the first distress signals began arriving. The Council's response has been predictable. Meetings, debates, committees, while worlds burn. To be fair, they've never faced anything like this. The harvesters are essentially a force of nature. Most of the Council species evolved on peaceful worlds with abundant resources. They never developed the same martial traditions we did. That's precisely why they're losing." Chen Wei turned away from the observation window. "How many ships are they requesting?" Torres was quiet for a moment. "They're not specifying. They're simply asking if we can help. I don't think they believe we have anything significant to offer, but they're desperate enough to ask anyway." Chen Wei smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Then I suggest we exceed their expectations. I'm calling in the Black Fleet." Torres's face went pale. "Admiral, the Black Fleet has never been deployed. The Council doesn't even know it exists. If we reveal it now... If we don't reveal it now, there won't be a galaxy left to hide it from." Chen Wei's voice was hard as steel. "The Black Fleet was built for exactly this scenario, an extinction-level threat that conventional forces cannot handle. The harvesters qualify. Contact Admiral Okonkwo. Tell her to begin mobilization, full deployment. Every ship, every weapon, everything we've built in secret over the past 50 years. The Council will have questions. They'll want to know how we hid an entire military force from their sensors. They'll have bigger concerns soon enough. When they see what the Harvesters are capable of, they won't care about our secrets. They'll only care about survival. She paused. How long until the Harvester Vanguard reaches Council space? 3 weeks. Maybe 4. They're not rushing. They seem to be systematically clearing each system as they go. No survivors. No escape. Then we have 3 weeks to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Chen Wei activated her personal communications device. All ships, all stations, this is Admiral Chen Wei. Initiate Protocol Omega. I repeat, Protocol Omega. The Black Fleet is now active. Across human space, the message spread at the speed of light. In hidden shipyards buried deep within asteroid fields, engineers who had worked in secret for decades finally powered up systems that had never been tested in combat. In training facilities on distant moons, soldiers who had prepared their entire lives for a battle they hoped would never come finally received their orders. And in the depths of space, where no sensors could reach, the true pride of humanity's military began to move. Ships that officially did not exist, weapons that were classified at the highest levels, an armada that had been built in the shadows, waiting for the moment when humanity would need to reveal its true strength. The Black Fleet had been humanity's insurance policy against the universe's cruelty. Now it was time to cash that policy in. Far from human space, the Harvester Collective continued its methodical destruction. They did not hurry because they did not need to. They had consumed countless galaxies over millions of years. They had faced resistance before from species that believed themselves powerful and advanced. That resistance had always failed. The outcome was never in doubt. The machine intelligence that controlled the Harvesters did not feel emotion in any organic sense, but it possessed something similar to satisfaction. This galaxy was rich with biological resources. It would sustain the collective for centuries before they moved on to the next feeding ground. As they approached the next populated system, the Harvesters barely registered the small fleet of organic vessels attempting to form a defensive line. The Telonian Empire's finest warships, pride of the most powerful military in Council space, arranged themselves in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. The Harvesters destroyed them in 7 minutes, not through superior tactics or strategy, simply through overwhelming force applied without mercy or hesitation. Their weapons tore through Telonian shields like they weren't there. Their vessels shrugged off plasma fire without taking damage. When it was over, debris was all that remained. Transmission complete, reported one of the Harvester control nodes. Local resistance eliminated. Proceeding to primary population center. Estimated resource extraction time, 47 hours. If the Harvesters had been capable of curiosity, they might have wondered about the single small probe that watched the battle from a safe distance, recording everything. They might have noticed that this probe bore markings they had never encountered before, symbols that spelled out the words United Earth Navy in a language they could not read. But the Harvesters did not notice. They did not care. They continued forward, unaware that the probe had already transmitted its data to a destination far across the galaxy, unaware that somewhere in the void, something was coming for them. Something that had been preparing for this moment for half a century. Something that called itself the Black Fleet. And unlike the Telonians, unlike the Council, unlike anyone the Harvesters had ever encountered, the humans were not interested in defense. They were not interested in survival. They had a much simpler goal in mind. They were interested in total war. The Council station received the human response exactly 47 hours after sending their plea for assistance. Ambassador Kethrall had not slept during that time. None of the Council representatives had. They had spent those hours watching more systems fall, more species cry out for help that never came, more lights wink out on the galactic map. When the communication arrived, Kethral was almost too exhausted to hope. He activated the display with trembling hands, expecting perhaps a sympathetic rejection, or maybe an offer of a few dozen ships that would make no difference against the harvester tide. What he saw instead made him forget how to breathe. The human woman on the screen wore a military uniform covered in medals and insignia that Kethral could not identify. Her expression was calm, almost serene, like someone who had already accepted what was coming and made peace with it. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Navy," she said. "We have received your request for assistance. Humanity will answer." Behind her, the display showed a tactical readout. Numbers began scrolling across the screen, and Kethral felt his heart stop. Ships. Thousands of ships. More ships than the humans were supposed to possess. More ships than many species in the Council possessed. The display kept updating, kept adding more vessels, kept showing more and more and more. "As of this transmission," Admiral Chen Wei continued, "the Black Fleet is en route to the Harvester Incursion Zone. Our estimated arrival time is 72 standard hours. We are transmitting tactical data on Harvester capabilities based on our long-range observations. We recommend all Council forces withdraw to defensive positions around your core worlds and await further instructions." Kethral found his voice. "Admiral, this cannot be accurate. Our records show humanity possesses perhaps 100 vessels capable of interstellar travel. You are showing us thousands. Your records are incomplete." Chen Wei's expression did not change. "Humanity has been preparing for this scenario since we first learned the Harvesters existed. We built our fleet in secret, hidden from your sensors, waiting for the day when we would need it. That day has come." "But how? Your species has been spacefaring for less than a century. How could you possibly construct such an armada in that time?" "We are very motivated, Ambassador, and we are very good at building weapons." For the first time, something that might have been a smile crossed Chen Wei's face. "Stand by for updated tactical briefings. The Black Fleet will handle the Harvesters. All we ask is that you stay out of our way." The transmission ended. Kethral stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then turned to face the assembled council. Every representative wore the same expression of stunned disbelief. "It appears," Kethral said slowly, "that we may have underestimated the humans." Fleet Commander Zrix stepped forward, his scales rippling with agitation. "This is impossible. We have monitored human space continuously since they joined the Council. We would have detected construction of this scale." Clearly, we would not have. Kethral gestured to the data still displayed on his personal screen. The transmission included technical specifications for some of their vessels. I am not an engineer, but even I can see that these designs are unlike anything in our databases. He pulled up one schematic and projected it for all to see. The ship it depicted was massive, easily twice the size of the largest Telonian dreadnought. But its appearance was what drew gasps from the assembled representatives. Where council ships were smooth and elegant, designed with aesthetic considerations in mind, this vessel was purely functional, angular, brutal, covered in what appeared to be weapons emplacements, hundreds of them, bristling from every surface like spines on a creature from some primitive world's nightmare. "They call this class the Executor," Kethral said. "According to their specifications, each one carries enough firepower to devastate a small moon. They have 47 of them." "Impossible," Zrix repeated, but his voice had lost its conviction. "There is more." Kethral scrolled through the transmitted data. "They have also sent information about their weapons technology. The primary armament on most of their vessels is something they call a mass driver. It is essentially a very large railgun that accelerates solid projectiles to significant fractions of light speed." "We are familiar with kinetic weapons," Yulmak said. "They are considered primitive. Energy weapons are far more versatile." "Primitive, perhaps, but according to human calculations, a single mass driver round from an Executor-class ship carries more destructive force than a thermonuclear device. And each Executor carries 12 primary mass drivers, along with several hundred smaller weapons. Kethrall paused to let that sink in. They also make extensive use of something they call nuclear missiles. These are self-guided projectiles carrying fusion warheads. Nuclear weapons? The Fenthian representative clicked in horror. Those are banned by Council treaty. The radiation damage alone is catastrophic. Humanity signed that treaty under duress, and they have clearly not honored it. Their fleet carries approximately 50,000 nuclear missiles. Kethrall shook his head slowly. We asked for help against the Harvesters. It appears we have summoned something nearly as terrifying. Admiral Chen Wei stood at the center of the Resolute's command bridge, surrounded by tactical displays that showed the positions of every ship in the Black Fleet. 7,243 vessels of various classes, from the mighty Executor dreadnoughts to the nimble Stiletto-class interceptors. The largest military force ever assembled by a single species, created in secret over 50 years of paranoid preparation. All ships report ready, Admiral, Commander Jackson reported from his station. The fleet is at 100% combat readiness. Our forward scouts have reached the edge of Harvester-controlled space, Lieutenant Chen added. She was not related to the Admiral, despite sharing a surname. They're transmitting tactical data now. The Harvesters appear to be concentrating around the Voralth system. That's where the Council's primary shipyards are located. They're going for the infrastructure, Chen Wei said. Eliminate the ability to build more ships, and the remaining resistance becomes irrelevant. Smart tactics. For machines that don't think, they fight pretty intelligently, Jackson observed. They've been doing this for millions of years. Even without true sapience, that's plenty of time to optimize their approach. Chen Wei studied the tactical display. How many Harvester vessels in the Voralth system? Approximately 3,000, Admiral. But our scouts report more arriving constantly. They may be planning to use Voralth as a staging area for deeper penetration into Council space. Then that's where we hit them. Chen Wei turned to address the entire bridge crew. Signal all ships. We're going to Voralth. Full combat speed. I want every weapon charged and every crew member at battle stations before we arrive. Admiral, Jackson said carefully, 3,000 Harvester ships against our 7,000. Those are good odds, but the Council fleets had numerical advantages too. It didn't help them. The Council fleets weren't us. Chen Wei's voice was hard. The Council species built their militaries for deterrence and small-scale conflicts. They've never faced a true existential threat. They don't know how to fight a total war. She turned back to the display. We do. Humanity has been fighting wars of annihilation for our entire history. Against each other, against disease, against nature itself. We survived because we learned to be more brutal than anything that tried to destroy us. She pointed to the Harvester fleet on the display. Those machines have never encountered anything like us. They've faced civilizations that surrendered when they realized they couldn't win. They've faced species that tried to negotiate, to reason, to flee. They've never faced a species that would rather burn the entire galaxy to ashes than accept defeat. With respect, Admiral, Lieutenant Chen said, what makes you so certain we can succeed where everyone else has failed? Chen Wei smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Because everyone else was trying to survive. We're not. We're going to walk into that system with every intention of dying, if that's what it takes. And we're going to make absolutely certain that we take every single Harvester with us when we go. She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships. This is Admiral Chen Wei. In approximately 26 hours, we will engage the Harvester Collective in the Voralth system. Many of us will not survive this battle. I will not insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise. But understand this. We are not fighting for territory. We are not fighting for resources. We are not even fighting for our own survival. We are fighting for the survival of every biological species in this galaxy. The harvesters have destroyed countless civilizations across millions of years. Today, that ends. You have trained for this moment your entire careers. You have prepared for a battle that we all hoped would never come. Now it is here, and I have never been prouder to serve alongside you. Show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Show those machines that they have finally met something they cannot consume. For Earth, for humanity, for every species that has ever dreamed of looking up at the stars. Attack with everything you have, and do not stop until the enemy is destroyed or you are dead. Chen Wei out. She closed the channel and turned to find her entire bridge crew standing at attention, saluting. She returned the salute, then nodded once. "Now," she said, "let's go hunting." The Harvester Collective detected the approaching fleet when it was still several hours away. Their sensor networks, refined over millions of years, identified the vessels as belonging to the species designated human. Their databases contained limited information about this species, as they had not yet encountered human resistance during the current consumption cycle. The collective processed the available data. Humans were a young species, barely capable of interstellar travel by Harvester standards. Their technology was primitive, their fleet was larger than expected, but the collective had faced larger fleets before. The outcome would be the same. The Harvesters did not alter their consumption schedule. They continued processing the resources of the Varalth system, breaking down orbital stations and planetary infrastructure into raw materials. The approaching human fleet would be dealt with when it arrived, like all the others. What the Harvesters did not anticipate was the nature of that first engagement. Standard Harvester combat doctrine involved overwhelming force at close range. Their weapons were designed for efficiency, delivering precise amounts of energy needed to disable enemy vessels without wasting resources. They would approach to optimal engagement distance, neutralize enemy defenses, and then dismantle the disabled ships for raw materials. The humans did not allow them to approach. At extreme range, well beyond what the Harvesters considered effective combat distance, the first wave of human ships opened fire. Not with energy weapons, which would have been ineffective at such distances, with mass drivers. The first salvo consisted of approximately 40,000 tungsten projectiles, each one accelerated to 15% of light speed. At such velocities, the kinetic energy contained in each projectile was astronomical. The Harvesters had no warning because the projectiles were moving too fast for their sensors to track. The rounds struck the outer edge of the Harvester formation like a wave of destruction. Shields that had withstood plasma weapons for millennia shattered instantly under the kinetic impact. Armor that had been considered impenetrable crumpled like paper. In the space of 3 seconds, 217 Harvester vessels ceased to exist. The collective experienced something it had not felt in millions of years. Confusion. "All ships, reload and fire at will," Admiral Chen Wei ordered. "Keep hitting them. Don't give them time to adapt." The second salvo was even larger than the first. This time, the humans targeted the center of the Harvester formation, where the processing vessels were concentrated. These ships were less heavily armored than the combat units, designed for resource extraction rather than warfare. They died in droves. "Admiral, the Harvesters are beginning to move," Commander Jackson reported. "They're trying to close the distance. Don't let them. All stiletto squadrons deploy nuclear screens. I want a wall of fire between us and them." The smaller human ships surged forward, launching hundreds of nuclear missiles into the void between the two fleets. The missiles detonated in a carefully calculated pattern, creating a barrier of radiation and debris that disrupted Harvester sensors and communications. Through this barrier, the mass driver rounds continued to come. Each salvo tore new holes in the Harvester formation. Each minute saw more enemy vessels reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The Harvesters tried to adapt, tried to find countermeasures, but they had never faced an enemy that could hurt them from such distances. Their combat protocols were useless. "Enemy fleet is down to 60% strength," Lieutenant Chen reported. "They're still trying to advance, but our fire is slowing them significantly." "They don't know how to retreat," Chen Wei said. "They've never had to learn. Keep firing." The battle continued for 6 hours. The harvesters threw everything they had at the human fleet, but the humans refused to let them close to effective range. Every time the machines advanced, they were met with another wall of nuclear fire. Every time they tried to flank, they found human interceptors waiting with more missiles. When it was over, the Voralth system was filled with debris. 3,000 harvester vessels had been reduced to less than 400. Human losses were severe, nearly 1,000 ships destroyed. But the fleet remained combat effective, and more importantly, the harvesters were retreating. For the first time in millions of years, the Harvester Collective was withdrawing from a battle it had not won. The concept was so foreign to their programming that several processing nodes suffered cascade failures trying to understand what had happened. They needed to regroup. They needed to analyze this new threat. They needed to develop countermeasures, but as they fled toward their main fleet concentration, they received a transmission from the human flagship. It was short, just a single sentence in a language they could now translate. "We're not finished with you yet." The news of the Battle of Voralth spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. For the first time in living memory, the Harvesters had been defeated. Not just slowed down or delayed, but actually pushed back, forced to retreat, made to flee. Ambassador Kethrall watched the tactical recordings with growing disbelief. The human ships moved with a coordination and aggression that seemed almost choreographed, each vessel acting as part of a larger organism dedicated entirely to destruction. Their weapons were terrifyingly effective, turning the supposedly invincible harvester vessels into debris with contemptuous ease. "They're following them," Commander Zrix said, his voice hollow. "The humans aren't stopping to regroup or resupply. They're pursuing the retreating harvester fleet." "That is madness," Kethrall replied. "They have already lost a significant portion of their forces. Pushing forward without pause will only increase casualties." "I don't think they care about casualties." Zrix's scales had gone pale, a sign of deep unease among his species. "Look at their formation. They're not even attempting to protect their damaged ships. They're leaving them behind, focused entirely on maintaining offensive pressure. They would rather lose vessels than allow the enemy to escape. This is not how civilized species wage war. No, it is not." Zrix turned to face the ambassador. "I have studied military history for 200 years. I have seen conflicts between dozens of species, analyzed thousands of battles. I have never seen anything like this. The humans fight as if they have nothing to lose, as if victory is the only outcome they will accept, regardless of the cost." Across the chamber, Thessaly, the young Emiri aide who had first suggested contacting the humans, approached with a data pad in her trembling hands. "Ambassador, we are receiving transmissions from the human fleet. Admiral Chen Wei is sending regular updates on her progress." "Show me." The holographic display activated, revealing Admiral Chen Wei's face. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but her expression remained sharp and focused. "This is Admiral Chen Wei, broadcasting to all Council species. Following our victory at Voralth, the Black Fleet has pursued harvester remnants across 4 additional systems. In each engagement, we have inflicted significant casualties while suffering acceptable losses of our own." Acceptable losses. Kethrall shuddered at the phrase. The humans had lost over 1,000 ships so far. Among the Council species, such casualties would be considered a catastrophic defeat. The humans apparently considered them acceptable. "We have identified the location of the primary harvester processing node," Chen Wei continued. "This is the central intelligence that coordinates their activities in this region of space. Destroying it will not eliminate the harvester threat entirely, but it will severely disrupt their operations and buy the galaxy time to prepare further defenses. The processing node is located in the Kyrath Nebula, heavily defended by approximately 8,000 harvester vessels. The Black Fleet currently numbers approximately 5,000 combat-effective ships. We will be outgunned, but we have developed tactics that should compensate for the numerical disadvantage. We are requesting that all Council species capable of providing military support send whatever forces they can spare to the following coordinates. This will be the decisive battle of this conflict. If we succeed, the harvesters will be crippled. If we fail, nothing will stop them from consuming the entire galaxy. Admiral Chen Wei, signing off. The transmission ended. The chamber was silent for a long moment. She's asking for our help, Yulmak said finally. After everything they've done alone, after proving that they don't need us, they're asking for reinforcements. Not because they need us to win, Zrix said slowly. She knows the Council fleets are inferior to her own. She's giving us a chance to participate, a chance to prove that we're worth saving. Kethral understood. The humans could have ignored the Council entirely, fought the harvesters alone, and then demanded whatever they wanted in return for saving the galaxy. Instead, they were offering the Council a role in its own salvation. Send the message, he said. All ships, all species, anyone who can fight, we're going to the Kyrath Nebula. We're going to stand with the humans. The combined fleet that gathered at the edge of the Kyrath Nebula was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 12,000 ships from 43 different species, united by desperation and an increasingly grudging respect for the humans who had given them hope. Admiral Chen Wei stood at the center of the combined command center, surrounded by holographic representatives of every participating fleet. The past 2 weeks had been brutal, endless combat and forced marches across space, but she showed no signs of fatigue. If anything, she seemed more alive than ever, energized by the proximity of the final battle. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I know that many of you had reservations about following human leadership. I know that our methods seem extreme, perhaps even barbaric by your standards. But we are here to win, not to feel good about ourselves." She activated the main tactical display, revealing the harvester defensive formation around the processing node. The enemy has concentrated their remaining forces here, approximately 8,000 vessels, arranged in a spherical defensive pattern around the node itself. Their strategy is simple: absorb our attacks while the node coordinates counteroffensives. Our strategy is also simple: overwhelming force applied at a single point. We're not going to try to fight the entire harvester fleet. We're going to punch through their line, reach the processing node, and destroy it. Everything else is secondary. The human fleet will lead the assault. We have the weapons and the training for this kind of close-quarters fighting. Council forces will provide support fire and protect our flanks from counterattack. Any questions? Fleet Commander Zrix's hologram stepped forward. What happens if the assault fails? If we cannot breach their defensive line? Then we die. Chen Wei's voice was matter-of-fact. And the galaxy falls to the harvesters. There is no backup plan, no retreat option, no negotiated settlement. We win here or we lose everything. That seems like a significant risk. It is. But it's a risk that humanity accepted the moment we learned the harvesters existed. We built the Black Fleet knowing that someday we would face this exact situation. We trained our crews to fight until the last breath, the last bullet, the last drop of fuel. We are prepared to sacrifice everything because we understand that the alternative is extinction. She looked around at the assembled representatives. I cannot promise that all of us will survive this battle. In fact, I can almost guarantee that many of us will not. But I can promise that we will make the harvesters pay for every ship they destroy, every life they take. And when this is over, whether we win or lose, the galaxy will remember that we did not go quietly. The attack began at Oro 600 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The human fleet surged forward in a tight wedge formation, their weapons already firing. Behind them, Council forces spread out in a supporting arc, adding their plasma weapons to the storm of destruction. The Harvesters responded immediately, moving to intercept the human advance. Thousands of vessels converged on the point of attack, pouring fire into the approaching wedge. Human ships began to die, but they did not slow down. They accelerated, driving deeper into the enemy formation. Admiral Chen Wei watched from the Resolute's bridge as her fleet fought its way toward the processing node. Ships exploded around her, thousands of crew members dying every minute, but she did not flinch. This was what they had trained for. This was the moment that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Forward batteries, target that cluster of combat vessels directly ahead. All power to forward shields. Admiral, we're taking heavy casualties. Executors 7 and 12 have been destroyed. 15 is reporting critical damage. Keep moving. We stop, we die. The Resolute shuddered as enemy fire struck its shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, but Chen Wei ignored them. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical display, watching the gap in the Harvester line slowly widening under the relentless human assault. Council forces are engaging the enemy flanks, Commander Jackson reported. They're drawing fire away from our main thrust. Good. Keep pushing forward. The battle raged for hours. Losses mounted on both sides, but the humans refused to retreat. Every time the Harvesters thought they had stopped the advance, the humans found a way to push through. Every time a ship fell, another moved up to take its place. And slowly, inevitably, the gap in the Harvester line widened. Admiral, we have a clear line to the processing node. Chen Wei felt a fierce joy surge through her. All ships, maximum acceleration. We end this now. The remaining human ships, barely 2,000 out of the original 5,000, surged through the gap they had created. The processing node loomed ahead, a massive construct larger than any station ever built by organic species. Its surface was covered with defensive weapons, all of them firing desperately at the approaching fleet. Target the central processing tower. Every weapon we have. Fire! 47 Executor-class dreadnoughts fired their main batteries simultaneously. Thousands of mass driver rounds, each one carrying more kinetic energy than a nuclear bomb, struck the processing node in a single, coordinated salvo. The shields, which had withstood attacks from entire fleets, collapsed under the concentrated assault. The second salvo struck the exposed armor. The third penetrated into the node's interior. The fourth triggered a cascade failure in the primary power systems. From the Resolute's observation deck, Chen Wei watched the processing node begin to break apart. Explosions rippled across its surface as critical systems failed one after another. The massive structure that had coordinated Harvester activities across millions of years was dying, and she had killed it. All ships, fall back to defensive positions, prepare for enemy counterattack. But the counterattack never came. Throughout the Harvester fleet, ships began to drift aimlessly, their coordination lost with the destruction of the processing node. Some continued to fire, but without central direction, their attacks were random and ineffective. "The enemy fleet is breaking up," Jackson reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're not retreating, they're just stopping. Without the node, they can't function as a coordinated force. They're just individual machines now, following basic programming." Chen Wei allowed herself to smile. "It's over. We've won." The aftermath of the Battle of Kyrath Nebula would be studied by military historians for thousands of years. Of the 12,000 ships that had participated in the final assault, fewer than 4,000 survived. Human casualties were proportionally the worst, with over 60% of the Black Fleet destroyed. But the Harvesters were broken. Without their central processing node, the remaining Harvester vessels could not coordinate their activities. They wandered through space, following simple subroutines that made them easy targets for cleanup operations. Within months, The harvester presence in the galaxy had been reduced to scattered remnants, easily contained and eventually destroyed. The Galactic Council held a formal ceremony to honor the human contribution to the victory. Ambassador Ketharal personally presented Admiral Chen Wei with the highest honor the Council could bestow, the Star of Unity, given to those who had demonstrated exceptional service to all galactic species. Chen Wei accepted the award with grace, but her speech was characteristically blunt. We did not fight the harvesters for medals or recognition. We fought because it was necessary, because someone had to stand between the galaxy and extinction, and we were the only ones capable of doing it. Many of you have asked how humanity developed such a formidable military without anyone noticing. The answer is simple. We have spent our entire existence preparing for war. Not because we enjoy violence, but because we understand that the universe is a dangerous place. We learned that lesson the hard way, through countless conflicts on our homeworld, through famines and plagues and disasters that nearly destroyed us. We survived because we refused to accept defeat. We survived because we learned to fight harder, smarter, and meaner than anything that tried to kill us. And now, we offer that same survival instinct to the galaxy. The harvesters were not the last threat we will face. There will be others, perhaps even more dangerous. When they come, humanity will be ready. And if the Council will have us, we will stand with you against whatever darkness the universe sends our way. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives from dozens of species. Because that is what humans do. We fight, we survive, and we never ever give up. The ceremony concluded with something that had never happened in the Council's history, a standing ovation from every representative present. Even Fleet Commander Zrix, whose species had a long tradition of stoicism, rose to acknowledge the human admiral who had saved them all. In the years that followed, the Galactic Council underwent significant changes. Human military advisors were assigned to every major fleet, helping to modernize tactics and weapons systems. The treaty banning nuclear weapons was quietly amended to allow their use against existential threats, and the Black Fleet, no longer hidden, became the core of a new galactic defense force, ready to respond to any danger that threatened the community of spacefaring civilizations. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the other species viewed humanity. They were no longer the primitive newcomers, the violent children who had barely learned to travel between stars. They were the saviors, the warriors who had done what no one else could, and in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where unknown threats lurked and ancient evils waited, the message spread. Humanity was watching. Humanity was ready, and anyone who threatened their adopted galactic family would learn the same lesson the harvesters had learned. Humans were not to be underestimated. Admiral Chen Wei retired 3 years after the Battle of Kyrath Nebula, settling on a quiet world at the edge of human space. She spent her remaining years writing her memoirs and training the next generation of human military leaders, passing on the lessons she had learned in the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. On her deathbed, surrounded by family and former crew members, she was asked what she considered her greatest accomplishment. "That's easy," she said, her voice weak, but still carrying the steel that had defined her entire career. "I showed the galaxy that humanity belongs among the stars, not as guests, not as observers, as protectors, as warriors, as the ones who will always, always fight for what's right. That's what we are, that's what we've always been, and that's what we'll always be." She closed her eyes for the last time, a smile on her weathered face. Outside her window, the stars shone bright, each one a reminder of the galaxy she had helped save. And somewhere out there, in the endless void between worlds, the name Chen Wei was already becoming legend, whispered by species who had never met her, but who owed their existence to her courage. The humans had answered the galaxy's call. and the galaxy would never forget it.